A lot has been written about the decline of young people who are staying Catholic while in college. This fall, Bishop Robert Barron and others have noted the tide seems to be changing, with young adults seeking connections through Catholic traditions and our rich liturgy. Did you know that Texas A&M University is one of the largest universities in the US with over 75,000 students, about a quarter of whom identify as Catholic? Nearly 4,000 students regularly attend Mass on weekends and participate in their dynamic Catholic community. Just a couple of years ago, they opened a new St. Mary's Catholic Center with a beautiful Romanesque style church and seating capacity for 1,600. In this episode of Catholics on Campus, I'm excited to introduce you to a current freshman at Texas A&M, Bryce LaRue. I met Bryce this summer when we were both volunteering at the Vatican for the Jubilee Year of Hope. Bryce was even featured on Pope Leo's Instagram page holding a handwritten sign that said, "Pope Leo, the youth of America love you." Welcome to the podcast, Bryce. Let's start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Virginia. I'm excited to be here. My name is Bryce LaRue. I am from Houston, Texas. I'm currently a freshman at Texas A&M University studying communications. I'm involved in the St. Mary's Catholic Center here at Texas A&M. And in addition, I'm involved on two student government committees, the Big Event Committee, which is the largest one-day service event in the country now. And I'm involved in COSGA, which is a student government conference that we host that is now the largest student government conference in the world. So very excited to be here and very excited to talk about my time here at Texas A&M.
That's fantastic. Well, how did you decide to attend Texas A&M?
So I have grown up in Catholic schools my whole life. Through grade school and high school, I went to a Jesuit school. And in high school, it's really where I found my faith and found my faith in a big way. I had a powerful encounter at a Steubenville Conference in 2021 that really changed my life. And in that conference, I really felt this call to action to grow in my faith. And so that's when I really just continued growing in my faith in high school. I thought about going to a Catholic school, study theology. But ultimately, I realized that God was calling me to Texas A&M to study communications and to grow in my faith here. One thing that really attracted me to Texas A&M is the St. Mary's Catholic Center, which I am now a part of. It's the largest university Catholic center in the country. It's very vibrant with daily mass every day, and there's adoration opportunities, Bible studies, and there's even 400 people going through OCIA right now at Texas A&M. And so it's just a vibrant community. And that's really what drew me to come here is that I could continue my faith and also grow in a professional academic setting as well.
400 people going through OCIA. That is
Yes,
amazing. Wow.
it's unbelievable. It's such a blessing.
Now, I had the opportunity to visit your campus a number of years ago. And I was really struck, as you mentioned, how vibrant the campus is, and students really seem to love being there. So tell us a little bit about how your faith has helped you with your adjustment to campus.
Yes, for sure. The community, like I said, is so vibrant, so active. I think the nice thing about Texas A&M's Catholic Center is that the first day I got here, they had a Connect retreat, and hundreds of freshmen went on this Connect retreat at St. Mary's. And so instantly, that adjustment to college can be very difficult. It can definitely catch us by surprise because you go straight from getting to college, enjoying socializing, and then you go to classes and it gets harder over time. But having this Connect retreat really just introduced me to new people right off the bat. So right away, when I went to the Connect retreat, I made new friends. I enjoyed just getting to know more people. And a lot of those people I met at that retreat are actually my great friends now. And so that was just one point of connecting with my faith that helped with the adjustment. But it didn't stop there. It definitely continued with daily mass, adoration, rosaries, the John 15 Bible study, which is every Thursday, and there's about 400 freshmen involved in that. Multiple opportunities like that, and just such a great community really helped me adjust to college and knowing that I have people who have my back. And are going to help me grow in my faith and go out of my comfort zone. And they'll challenge me to grow in my faith in such a deeper way and really enjoy college as someone growing in faith. And I don't have to get involved in sinful things to have fun. And I think that's really what I love about the Catholic Center is we can just have a good time, enjoy community, and grow in our faith together.
Fabulous. Well, I know from talking to you that you've been devoted to the Eucharist and adoration. So could you talk about how that came about?
Absolutely. So the Eucharist is definitely the pinpoint of my faith life. So in 2021, when I went to a Steubenville conference, I had never really been to a conference like that before. I had grown up Catholic, gone to adoration and mass, but not really understood it in the deeper way that I would after Steubenville. And so I kind of went through a rough time during middle school and just kind of struggled with some depression and didn't always have the best time during COVID, especially because it was just such a rough time for all of us being isolated, feeling alone. It was in COVID that God really met me in that place of hardship and desolation. And I just prayed and I started praying and I really found this Christian faith that God had kind of put in my heart. But I always knew that maybe there's something more. And so I had always grown up Catholic, so I kept going to mass, but it just wasn't clicking in the way like that it would one day. And so I signed up for Steubenville Conference randomly and I went to the conference and I remember the speakers and just everything they were talking about just clicked. Like it was just like I was finally meeting people who understood what I believed and also believed it. And to be with 2,000 other people, 2,000 other teens, especially, was really powerful. And then everyone was talking about the Saturday night adoration and how that was going to be huge. And so I didn't know what to expect. I think the best moments in my life are when I go in and I don't expect anything. That's where God really works. And I went in and I just remember in adoration seeing the Eucharist on the altar and just crying in gratitude for all God had done for me and all that God had put into my life and just blessed me with, and how he got me out of that low place. And from that, I was really satisfied. Like it was just so beautiful and it was just such an encounter. But then that wasn't the end. They kept going around the conference center and they started processing row by row. And I've shared it before and I'll share it again because I think it's really powerful, is that God wasn't only going row by row, but he was going row by row, searching out my heart. And I just remember seeing Jesus in that moment in the Eucharist, just looking to my left and just realizing that that was Jesus. And that was more real than anything I had ever experienced, anything I will ever experience. And it was a rock that I could count on, a foundation that I could rely on. And in the midst of my struggle, he would always show up, especially in the Eucharist. And so that's kind of where my devotion started, especially. And to this day, I think even through the busyness of life, I can always count on Jesus showing up in that chapel. And we can always count. I think the great thing about being Catholic is like he is in so many chapels around the world, and we can always count on him being there. Even if we don't show up, he is there and he's ready to have our heart. And that's really why I'm dedicated to it, is because it just really was a pinpoint of change in my life. And it just really helped me know why I'm Catholic.
Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. I wonder if you can kind of give us a snapshot of what your week is like. There's so much going on a college campus. Tell us, what's that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the week can vary based off each week. Even the days are different because of class schedules. But overall, mainly it looks like I'm mainly involved here at the Catholic Center. So I'll come here, I'll study. I have some classes on campus and one class online. So I'll go to those classes. Usually during the evening time is when kind of my involvements kick in. So that includes like the Bible study with St. Mary's, the John 15 Bible study. In addition, my involvement in the student government committees. And then on the weekends, always good for some Aggie football. So we have that. And we're doing really good at the time of this interview. We're doing really good. So hopefully it plays out. But the community through that is definitely a part of the school, and the traditions of the school are very important here. And then I think just throughout the week, I try to go to adoration, say the rosary, get involved with different kind of fun, random things too. So if people want to go play volleyball, just kind of giving time for that. And then recently, kind of prioritizing rest more. So
Mm.
on a weekly basis, it looks different every day, but kind of the pinpoint of my week is how can I live out my faith in the church, but also how can I take that to the campus and beyond in kind of a bigger setting?
Yeah. Well, this kind of leads to my next question about time management and setting priorities. That's really a struggle for a lot of college students. So, talk about how you kind of navigate time management with all your classes, your social life, personal time, and your faith.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that comes to mind actually, I remembered is when I went to a conference this past summer, Jeff Caven's a speaker. He shared a really great talk about priorities. And he
Mm.
basically said that the word priorities evolved from the word priority. And so he talked about how we shouldn't have priorities, but we should have one priority, and that being God. So I've kind of taken that talk into my college life and kind of remembered that my priority is God and kind of seeing how that can play out into different things. So remembering that I try to prioritize prayer as the foundation of my day. It's definitely difficult, especially in the first couple of weeks when you'll just be sitting there studying or praying and someone will be like, you want to go do this or that. Like it's definitely difficult, but God kind of teaches us that balance. So I kind of make that my priority. Now, time management wise, I think it's important kind of logistically to have like a calendar. So some people really love writing out a calendar. For me, I love using an online calendar. That really helps, like Google Calendar. And that kind of really helps me like center my day because it'll remind me, it'll kind of make sure that I have everything down. So that's kind of like a logistical way to do it, but definitely realizing that we have kind of like spiritual time management of making sure we have time for prayer, but also putting it into action by having kind of a game plan on paper or on a calendar online to kind of help focus our day. Because when we do that, it really will help us center our time around God. So we have different times for the different things He calls us to.
Fantastic. Now, if you could have a do over of something that's happened to you on campus so far this fall semester, what would it be?
That's a great question. Let me think. I would say that the one thing I would do over is definitely prioritizing rest. So I got sick the first semester, like many college students do. I think we all go through it. I got sick, and the one thing I kept remembering during that sickness, because I was in bed for a couple days, was,
Mm.
man, I wish I got more rest, or I wish I took that extra nap, or I wish I got more sleep. I think that's definitely something I would do over is prioritizing rest early on. I've definitely been able to kind of do that more recently, which has been awesome. But definitely prioritizing rest. Someone told me, and I think it's really important, is that rest doesn't always look like sleeping all day. It may look like spending time with people that you know, or spending time in nature, reading a spiritual book, reading a book. It may look like something different, but kind of giving rest to your mind as well is important. And I think I've been trying to prioritize that. And it definitely helps when you think about that and kind of prioritize rest because it can help you go out and do all the things God calls you to even better than before.
Yeah, thank you. And what advice would you have for freshmen or parents who are deciding whether or not to go to a Catholic school or a public school? What should they consider in that discernment?
Great question. So I think at one point I was very set on going to a Catholic school, and that was my priority, was going to a Catholic school and studying theology, and that was going to be the way that I would kind of figure out my faith more. But I realized over time that God works in all places, just like remembering that basic fact, but remembering it. And sometimes we have to realize what gifts we've been given. So I realized that I had a gift of talking to people. And so communications was something that I felt God was calling me to. And A&M has a great communications program. And it's not a Catholic school, but it has a great Catholic center. And so I think for people considering a public school or a private Catholic school for college, I would just say that it's different for everyone. And going to a non-Catholic college does not mean that you're not going to live out your Catholic faith. I think in some ways I'm able to live out my Catholic faith even more effectively by being at a public school because there's definitely a mission field as well as great place to grow at this Catholic center. And so I would just say consider what your gifts are. Look at the opportunities. Maybe you want to be a nurse and one school has the top nursing program, but it's not Catholic. Or maybe it is Catholic. No matter what, just look at your gifts, see how God wants to use those gifts. And no matter where you are, you can be devoted to God and find Him in other people. And I think that's just important to remember.
Yeah. And what aspirations or goals do you have for your time at Texas A&M?
So I think kind of one main goal I have is serving others. So I want to be involved in service throughout campus, not only on campus, but at St. Mary's. So on campus, I'm involved in the big event, and that has been great because in March, we're going to help thousands of residents with projects at their home in the College Station area, which is such a blessing. And then at St. Mary's, I'm involved on the youth retreat team. So we go out and run retreats for high schoolers. And so I basically want to be involved in service in multiple aspects in a faith-based way, but also on campus and bringing my faith to that through on-campus organizations.
Yeah, fantastic. So as we're wrapping up, I have three last questions for you. Who is your favorite saint and why?
My favorite saint is Saint Carlo Acutis. I was about to say Blessed Carlo Acutis, but thanks be to God, he's a saint now, which is so inspiring. Man, I don't even know where to start. Carlo is absolutely awesome. I was able to visit his tomb in Assisi, and while I was there, I ran into this group who was on a Zoom call with his mom. And so I got to hear from his mom on a Zoom call, and she talked all about his life. And man, it was just really inspiring because I think many people see him as someone who played video games and wore tracksuits. And I think that's why I relate to him is like he dressed like me and he does technology like me. But I think in a greater sense, what really is impactful about Carlo is his devotion to the Eucharist and how he said it was his highway to heaven. I
Mm,
just love that quote, like his way with words. And he always said, not me, but God. I think I just find myself in my daily life saying those quotes because I think they're so true. And since he became a saint and he was young, like it's possible. I think we didn't always realize that as a church that sainthood is possible now too, and not just like 1,000 years ago. Sainthood is possible now, and he did it. He accomplished his goal. It was his goal throughout his lifetime. God answered that prayer of sainthood. And I think it just kind of shows me that we can pray to be saints, and God wants to answer that prayer. And he put that desire on our heart to be a saint for a reason. It's just really, really inspiring.
that's beautiful. And what's one Catholic tradition from home that you brought with you to college?
Okay, I love this. So, one thing that I did at home, and I basically started doing this in August, but I gathered everyone for a praise and worship gathering at my house. And so, my goal is to kind of continue that in college. So, I've started having lemonade parties. And basically, what we do is we gather in community and we just have good community, good, wholesome fun. We have lemonade and we talk, have conversations. We had like 40 people at the last one. We also had a St. Carlo Acutis canonization party. And so I kind of continued that tradition of having praise and worship gatherings. And what we did is we got a cake that said Happy Sainthood Carlo. And we had two talks and then we did praise and worship. And we had like 30 people that came. And so I've kind of continued that gathering in community to kind of grow in faith, but also again like have good fun without being
Yeah.
sinful. And I think that's just like really important nowadays is like that us youth don't have to be sinful to have fun. Like the Lord is fun and joyful and great.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. If you could give one message to Catholic college students about staying faithful in college, what would it be?
Yeah, so I've thought about this because I'll be honest, at times it's very hard to kind of like balance everything and definitely prioritize God in the center of things. It's definitely a challenge, not an impossible one. And so I'd say my one word of advice would be, and this is what I tell myself, is do it for your 80-year-old self. And here's what
Mhm.
I mean by that. I think about myself when I'm on my deathbed or years from now, and in that moment, what will really matter? And how did I live my life so that it was worthy of heaven? And so I think about that moment and I would tell people if you get caught up in a very small detail, or you didn't do good on a quiz, or you're not sure if things are going right or wrong, remember your 80-year-old self. Remember yourself at the end of your life. And in the end, all these little things God will use to bring you to that goal of heaven. And so ultimately, I try to consider that I'm doing this for the long run. I don't have to feel my faith all the time. I don't have to know everything. It doesn't all have to be happy and joyful at every single moment. But if I remember that my end goal is heaven, and that my 80-year-old self in those last moments, if I remember that I'm doing it for that to get to heaven, then ultimately everything else will follow. And that's kind of the advice, kind of the words of wisdom I'd give just from my experience here.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciated talking with you and hearing all about your adventures. And I really hope that we can stay in touch and maybe interview you a few more times throughout your time in school, because I just know you're going to do amazing things. So thank you
Thank you.
again. I really appreciate that. So thank you again to Bryce for being part of Catholics on Campus. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give it a 5-star rating and share it with your friends. I appreciate your spreading the word about this podcast. Until next time, Mary, untier of knots, pray for us. Amen.